Hello, friend, and welcome back to the Unshakeable People Podcast, where we shape minds and build leaders through conversations that change lives. My name is Katie Kaspari. I'm your host, and I'm a certified psychologist and a mindset coach running my own coaching practice in London. Today, we're going to unpack something that may feel uncomfortable at first, but I promise it will change your perspective on personal growth forever. Today, we're talking about the 3 steps to identifying, admitting, and addressing your weaknesses, transforming them into strengths that you've never fully tapped into before. And this isn't just another feel-good chat that we're going to have today about self-improvement, but rather we'll explore and dig deep into the essence of what holds us back and how we can break free permanently, for good. Whether you've been stuck in the same habits for years, like many, or maybe you feel like you are on the edge of something big, but you can't quite figure out what is missing. Definitely, whatever it is, this episode will speak directly to you. And here's the hard truth. Most advice on personal growth doesn't go far enough. It focuses on surface level improvements, like get up earlier, 6 a.m. is our time, make a to-do list. God, how many of those do we all have? Read more books. I don't know. Meditate. All these are definitely great ideas, but they only scratch the surface of what true transformation requires. And that is why so many people today, they're literally stuck in not understanding what steps exactly they need to take. What is it that really takes for the transformation to begin and for the transformation to happen to a person? Why? Because all these great ideas that you might hear from every corner today, they don't force you to confront the deeper and often uncomfortable truths about yourself. In the Inner Strength Manifesto, and this is what I think this episode is, there is a clear message. Before you can truly grow, you have to look inwards, honestly and critically assessing your intrinsic self. This isn't about beating yourself up or obsessing over your flaws. It's more about understanding these flaws and acknowledging them. Most people avoid this kind of self-reflection because it's uncomfortable. But discomfort is where the growth happens. Step out of your comfort zone. Think about it. The people you admire most, like the ones who seem unshakable, aren't necessarily more talented or lucky than you. What they have is a deep understanding of who they are, including their own limitations and a relentless drive to address these limitations head on. And I have made today's episode with a clear idea to dive into some very important topics that are not being discussed that much. So what we're going to do is we're going to first identify your strengths and weaknesses. Like it's somewhat like a SWOT analysis in marketing, but it's not just a quick assessment, but we want to make a deep dive into the patterns and habits that actually shape your life. I then suggest that you admit them fully. This is where most people falter. Admitting weaknesses can feel like admitting failure. And we all say, I don't want to admit this truth because it will make me look weak. But in reality, it's a gateway to growth. And the third thing we're going to do today is address them with massive action. No half measures here. If you want to transform, you need to commit to the process, no matter how uncomfortable this process may seem. And we'll dig into each of these in detail. So, I suggest you grab a notebook if you wish, because you might want to write some of this down. And let's begin the episode. So let's start with identification. If you're anything like most people, you have probably spent years focusing on your strengths. And you like to talk about them. You like to admit them. We all have strength, and these are the parts of us that we are most proud of. We want to show them off. And that's not a bad thing. But I think the catch is this: strengths can only take you so far. Eventually, your weaknesses will sabotage your success, and it's inevitable. And it's something many people never see coming because they don't pay enough attention to their weaknesses. They only acknowledge their strengths. So now let's make this personal. I want you to think about the qualities that have helped you succeed so far. Like, analyze all of your successes and achievements and define those qualities that helped you get to where you are today. Maybe you're ambitious, disciplined, driven by a strong sense of purpose. I don't know. Maybe you are incredibly empathetic, able to connect with others in ways that make those other people feel understood and supported. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. Define it. And now flip the coin. What about your weaknesses? Where do you struggle? Maybe it's perfectionism, constantly feeling like nothing you do is ever quite good enough. So you just hold yourself back from really finishing projects or putting yourself out there. Because if it's not perfect, it's not worth it. Or maybe it's avoidance, dodging difficult conversations or situations because they make you feel uncomfortable. Or maybe it's self-doubt, never quite believing you are capable, so you just don't fully commit. Now, here's an exercise that I suggest you do. Grab a piece of paper and divide it into 3 sections. In the first one, you will have strengths. In the second, you will have weaknesses. And in the third, you would have aspirations. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. Don't lie. For every strength you write down, identify a weakness that balances it out. No one is without both. If you have a strength, there must be a weakness. Now, why does this matter? Because without understanding the big picture, the full story of who you are, the light and the dark, the bad and the good, you can't move forward. You would keep seeing only one part of the picture, ignoring the other. And that's not right. You will always be operating from blind spots. And those blind spots will be the thing that holds you back when you are right on the edge of a breakthrough. You just wouldn't see where you're going and what you need to do to maybe alter the course. And here is something important I think we all need to understand about strengths. They're not always what they seem to be. What I mean is that sometimes a strength in one context can become a weakness in another. For example, someone who is highly ambitious might also struggle with overpromising or being too focused on the future. neglecting the present moment, not being in the here and now, and thus missing out on many things that are happening to them here and now. Discipline, again, which is often seen as a key strength, it can also lead to rigidity, making it difficult to adapt to new circumstances or opportunities. People who are super disciplined are not necessarily the most flexible people on earth. And this is what I call a flip side of strength. Every trait has a flip side. And part of the work that we are doing today in this episode is actually recognizing when a strength might actually be causing harm. It's like having a high-powered engine in a car without proper control. It can cause accidents instead of taking you where you want to go. So after you have identified your strengths, take a step back and ask yourself this: where have these strengths actually worked against me? Find the bad sides in them. Where have they led to imbalance in my life? And the goal here is to see the full spectrum of how your traits manifest in your daily life. And this awareness is what will allow you to make the necessary adjustments as you move forward. Now, I want you to pause and reflect on this for a moment. And here's a question for you. How have your strengths played out in ways that have both helped and hindered you? I want you to write it down. And this step alone can be a game changer in how you approach personal growth. So let's take this step even further. Identifying strengths and weaknesses is crucial, of course, but even more important is to recognize the patterns in your life. Let me explain what I mean by that. Patterns are the recurring behaviors, thoughts, and emotional reactions that shape your daily life. They are often so ingrained that you don't even notice them. You're used to them. But these patterns are what define your limitations and ultimately your potential for growth. Here is an example. Maybe you have noticed a pattern of procrastination when it comes to starting new projects. Say, whenever you want to start something new, start procrastinating. Every time an opportunity comes up, you delay, telling yourself you'll get to it when you're ready. We've all been in that situation, but somehow you just never feel ready and the opportunity passes you by. And this is a pattern of avoidance. And until you find it, until you identify it, give it the name and shape, it will continue to sabotage your success. Or maybe, for example, you've noticed a pattern of self-doubt. Every time you are about to step into a new role or taking up on a new challenge, that little voice in your head and in your heart starts whispering, "Are you sure you're up for this? And what if you fail?" And this is a pattern of insecurity, and it's holding you back from stepping into your full potential. But here's the good news. Once you see the pattern, you can change it. Once you have the name and shape for this pattern, you can always change it. Awareness is the first step to breaking the cycle. So take a moment now and try to reflect on the recurring patterns in your life. Where do you find yourself stuck? What situations or emotions trigger these patterns? Just write them down and analyze. Now that you've identified your strengths, weaknesses, and patterns, so we now have 3, it's time to move to the next step, and it's admission. And this is where most people stumble. Admitting a weakness feels like admitting failure, doesn't it? It feels vulnerable, exposing parts of yourself that you've spent years trying to hide from everyone, including yourself. But The thing is that without admission, there can be no growth. Just think about it. If you're constantly pretending that everything is fine, that you've got it all together, then how can you possibly improve? How can you make changes if you won't even acknowledge that something needs to change in the first place? And I think this step is one of the most liberating experiences you can go through. Because when you admit a weakness, you take control of it and you can stop hiding it. It's no longer a lie. You stop letting this weakness control you. And it's like shining a light on a shadow. You realize it's not as scary as it seemed in the dark. Here's a story from my coaching practice. I once worked with a client who was struggling with communication in their leadership role. They were extremely skilled in every technical aspect of the job. They were just brilliant. But when it came to leading their team, they constantly avoided difficult conversations. They just walked away from it. And at first, they couldn't admit that this was a problem. They told themselves it was just their personality. It was just the way they were, that they weren't confrontational. They were just avoiding this. But deep down, they knew this was affecting their leadership. And the moment they admitted that communication was their weakness, everything changed. We were able to develop strategies to improve their skills. And today they are not just managing, they are leading with confidence. And I know that they are much better off. That transformation wouldn't have been possible without first admitting the weakness. If they kept going through the same cycle of avoidance, it would just still be in place. So here's your challenge. What weakness have you been avoiding? What's the thing you have been telling yourself, and just identifying it is just who I am? Maybe there is something that you know you were constantly lying about, when deep down you know that it's holding you back and it's something that stands in your way to success. I want you to think about it and admit it. It's pretty easy. Just write it down. And there is definite, huge power in that admission. From a psychological standpoint, admitting a weakness activates something called cognitive dissonance. Have you ever heard of this term? Essentially what it means is it is the mental discomfort that we feel when our actions or beliefs are in conflict with our self-image. When you admit a weakness, you're essentially confronting this dissonance head on. And your mind doesn't like dissonance. It wants harmony between your beliefs and your reality. So when you admit a weakness, your brain starts looking for ways to resolve that discomfort by either changing your behavior or changing your beliefs. And this is why admitting the weakness is so crucial to growth. When you admit a weakness, you are creating a space for your mind to start finding solutions. It's like opening a door that was previously locked. Suddenly, hey, new possibilities for growth and change become visible. The fog disappears and everything becomes clear. Now, here is an important point. Admission doesn't mean self-judgment, and I must say that. It's not about beating yourself up or labeling yourself as not good enough. It's simply about being honest with yourself. And there is a huge difference between admitting a weakness and defining yourself by this weakness. By no means I mean the last. Remember, you are not your weaknesses. We all have them. Your weaknesses are simply areas that you identify where you can grow. By admitting them, you are just taking the first step towards transforming them. You're not taking any steps back. And now that you've identified and admitted your weaknesses, it's time for the final and most critical step, addressing them. And again, this is where most people give up because it's hard. It's really hard. It's uncomfortable and it requires change, and any change is a stress. If you want to become unshakable, you can't just try to change. You have to commit to massive action. And that means going beyond the occasional effort or half-hearted attempt. It means making a decision that you will do whatever it takes to transform. And I want to once again emphasize the importance of taking massive action. There is a difference between people who say, I'll try, and people who say, I will do, no matter what. The first group is full of good intentions, but they rarely follow through. And the second group, well, they are the ones who make real, lasting changes. They are the ones who push through. They push through all the struggles, the difficulties, the discomfort, and they come out the other side stronger, of course. Here is a metaphor for you. Imagine you're standing at the edge of the river. On the other side of the life you want, the version of yourself that is confident, resilient, unstoppable, unshakable, strong, smart, everything. But imagine you stand on the edge of the river, and on the other side, you see the life that you want for yourself. That version of yourself that is confident, resilient, unstoppable, unshakable, smart, everything. But the only way to get across is to swim. Well, it's a river, and you can't just dip your toe in the water, right? You can't keep standing on the shore where you are and hope that the current somehow will carry you over. You have to dive in. You have to fully commit. You have to make the effort and actually swim with everything you've got. And that's exactly what massive action looks like. It's diving in, even when it feels scary. It's just going for it. It's pushing through the resistance, even when every fiber of your being is telling you to stay safe and comfortable. And it's doing it over and over and over and over again until the change becomes permanent. Now let's talk about commitment for a minute. In my coaching practice, I often see people who want to change, but they are not fully committed to that change. They are still holding on to the belief that they can stay in their comfort zone and somehow get different results. Just something would happen and they truly believe it. That the universe would just give everything they want to them because they're nice. But here's the thing, confident growth cannot coexist. If you want to grow, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to push past the boundaries of what feels safe and familiar. And this is where the mantra, no matter what, and this is the mantra, comes in. It's a simple phrase, but it carries so much power. When you commit to change, no matter what, you're telling yourself that failure, it's just not an option. You are removing the possibility of giving up. And that's where real transformation happens, because you just don't have any other choice. Because you promised yourself that you would do it no matter what. I want to share another story with you. One of my clients, again, it was a lady who had spent years struggling with self-doubt. When I first saw her, she was so closed up. Every time she tried to step up in her career, and she was working in corporate, she used to hear that voice in her head that would tell her she wasn't good enough. She didn't deserve success. She was not supposed to speak up because there were people who were more confident, more experienced than her, smarter than her. And for years, she let that voice hold her back. But then something changed. We started work, and she made the decision to commit to her growth no matter what. She stopped waiting for the doubts to disappear and just started taking action in spite of them, against all odds. It wasn't easy, definitely. It wasn't comfortable. But over time, those doubts lost their power. And today, this client of mine, this lady, amazing lady, she's leading a team of 50 and thriving in her role. She's an amazing leader. That's the power of massive action and commitment. She could continue living in her self-doubt. She could continue living in her comfort zone, remaining in that comfort zone and not changing anything at all. She could just continue being in that closed up her, with self-doubt being the predominant force in her life. But in spite of that, she decided, no matter what, I will just do it because I'm fed up. I don't want to stay in this role and in this position any longer. And I'm very proud of her and her success. This really is one of the most remarkable stories from my practice. It just literally, you just had to see the version that came into my office when we first met and the version that I have seen with my own eyes when we were finishing our work. It was remarkable. Now, I want to talk about what happens when you take that massive action, when you commit to facing your weaknesses head on. What actually happens is you start building something that is far more valuable than any skill or talent that you might have. And this one thing is confidence. Confidence isn't something that people are born with. Well, very, very rarely. But most people are not born with it. It's something that you build step by step, through hard work, through action, through struggle, through trial and error. It's not the result of telling yourself positive affirmations in the mirror or wishing for a better life. Confidence comes from doing the hard things over and over and over again until they become your second nature, until these hard things becomes your second skin. And the good example is one person who struggled with social awkwardness and avoidance. They wanted to be more courageous and confident, but they didn't know where to start. The key for them was simple. Start small and start now. And they began by initiating small conversations, putting themselves in slightly uncomfortable situations. And over time, these small actions built up, creating a foundation of confidence that grew stronger with every step. And this is how it works in real life. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel confident. Oh, it's a great morning, the sun is shining, and by the way, I feel confident. No, that's not the way it happens. You build that confidence brick by brick through the actions that you take, through every single day, through every single month, through every single year of your life. And it does take years. And the more you act, the more your brain rewires itself to support this new version of you, the new confident version of you. And I now think I want to go a bit deeper into the science and try to give you an idea of how it works from the scientific point of view. So your brain is constantly rewiring itself in response to your actions. We've talked about it many, many times. And this very concept, the neuroplasticity, is one of the most exciting discoveries in modern neuroscience from my point of view. And what it means is that every time you take a new action, especially an action that pushes you outside of your comfort zone, you are literally reshaping the pathways in your brain. Here's how it works. When you repeat a behavior, your brain strengthens the neural connections associated with that behavior. So if, for example, you've spent years avoiding conflict, your brain has developed strong connections around avoidance. It is used to it. It has a lot of neural pathways there. But when you start doing the opposite, when you confront difficult situations, for example, instead of avoiding them, you begin to build new pathways. And over time, these new pathways become stronger and the old ones weaken. And this is why action is so very powerful. Every time you push through discomfort, you are training your brain to be more confident, more resilient, and more flexible. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's like building muscle, like working out in the gym. The more you work at it, the stronger you get. So here's my question for you. What small action can you take today that will move you one step closer to the person that you want to become? Don't wait for that right moment or for your doubts to disappear. Most probably they wouldn't. Why don't you start now? Because the more you act, the more confident you'll become, and that confidence will become unshakable, and it will make you unshakable. And here is something else to keep in mind. Confidence doesn't come from one big action. It comes from a series of small, consistent actions that compound over time. And this is what's known as the compound effect, a term popularized by Darren Hardy. And the idea is that small, seemingly insignificant actions, when repeated consistently over time, they lead to massive results. Think about it in this way. If you improve just 1% every day, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better than when you started. That's the power of the small wins, and it's only 1 year of your life. Now, in my practice, I often tell clients to focus on micro actions, small steps that are so easy, they can't help but succeed. For example, if you're struggling with confidence in social situations, you can start by making eye contact with strangers or just asking one small question during a meeting. And these small actions, they might seem insignificant, but over time, trust me, they build up and create the momentum. Here is an example from my own life. When I first started public speaking, I remember I was terrified. I did speak in public before, and I spoke in a lot of meetings, obviously in negotiations, but I was asked to speak to a very large audience, and I was terrified. My hands would shake, before I went on stage, and my voice on stage would tremble. And I'd leave that stage feeling like I was a complete failure. But I didn't let that fear paralyze me. At that time, I decided to take small steps to build my confidence, because I wanted to become a public speaker. I wanted to speak in front of big audiences, and this was my ultimate goal. And I decided, okay, I wasn't that great in this first try, but I need to educate myself to become better in it and just take small steps every single day. So I started speaking in front of smaller groups, and I was practicing in front of the mirror, imagining that I had a large audience in front of me. And eventually, I worked my way up to larger audiences. And today, I speak in front of hundreds of people with absolute confidence. That's not a problem. But all this, it didn't happen overnight. It was the result of small, consistent actions that compounded over time. My message here is, don't underestimate the power of small wins. Every action you take builds confidence, and every bit of confidence that you build makes you stronger and makes you more unshakable. It makes you resistant. Before we move on, I want to remind you that every Friday, 12 noon UK time, I host a live Q&A session where we dive deep into all of the topics that I cover in my podcast. And if you've got questions, struggles, or just want some extra support, join me live here on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And I'd love to hear from you and help you on your journey to becoming stronger, faster, smarter every single day. I hope to see you there. Now that we've talked about action and confidence, let's explore another critical piece of the puzzle: mindset. Specifically, the role that positive psychology plays in transforming your life. Positive psychology, as defined by psychologists like Martin Seligman, is the study of what makes life worth living. Have you ever thought about that? This study focuses not on fixing what's wrong, but on building what's right, strengthening the positive traits and behaviors that lead to happiness, resilience, and fulfillment. And one of the key principles in positive psychology is actually optimism, the belief that good things are possible. And this positive mindset is crucial if you want to build your unshakable inner strength, because it shifts your focus away from fear and failure and towards possibility and potential. Here's the simple way to practice this. Start by reframing your challenges. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, start viewing them as stepping stones towards growth. Okay, we all struggle with obstacles. Find the way around it. Every time you encounter a setback, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger, even if you failed? See, research has shown that people who practice this kind of optimistic thinking are not only happier, but also way more successful in every area of their lives. And the good question here is why? Well, studies show that this is because they are less likely to give up in the face of adversity. They just carry on going longer. They see challenges as temporary, not permanent, and they believe in their ability to overcome them. And this belief is an absolute crucial thing. Again, I want to give you a real life example. Another client of mine was going through a tough time at work. She was dealing with, a very difficult boss, constant criticism, and extremely heavy workload. And at first, she felt defeated, like she was never going to succeed in that environment, and she even thought about leaving that workplace altogether. But through our work together, we have learned to reframe the situation. Obviously, we couldn't change her boss, but instead of seeing her boss as an enemy, she started seeing him as a teacher, someone who was challenging her to grow in ways that she hadn't expected. So she started seeing him as a good teacher. And this shift in mindset changed everything. Instead of feeling resentful and stuck, she actually started taking proactive steps to improve her performance, her communications, her effectiveness, her efficiency, and the way she managed stress. And over time, she didn't just survive in that environment. Obviously, she thrived and she got a raise and she moved to another boss later on, years after. But in that particular situation, she still stepped out as a winner. And this is the definite power of the positive psychology. When you shift your focus from what's going wrong to what's possible, you open up new pathways for growth and success. And on this note, I want to invite you to talk about the science behind optimism. Studies have shown that optimists have better physical health, stronger immune systems, and longer lifespans compared to pessimists. Can you believe that? But beyond the physical benefits, optimism also rewires your brain to be more resilient in the face of stress and adversity. And here is how it works. When you experience a setback, your brain processes that event based on the story that you tell yourself about it. If you see the setbacks as permanent and personal, your brain responds with stress. It responds with anxiety and defeat. But if you see the setback as temporary and situational and normal, your brain responds with curiosity and problem solving. It starts to suggest tools and skills for you to solve this problem. And this is why optimistic people are more likely to bounce back from challenges, not get stuck in them. They are literally training their brains to see setbacks as opportunities for growth. And the more you practice this mindset, the stronger those neural pathways become. So here is my challenge for you. The next time you face a challenge, pause and ask yourself, what's the opportunity here in that challenge? How can this make me stronger? It might feel awkward at first, but over time, I promise you, this kind of thinking will become second nature to you, and you will start doing it on autopilot. And when it does, you'll start to see setbacks not as roadblocks, but again, as stepping stones on your journey to becoming the most unshakable version of you. Now let's revisit the idea of the no matter what mentality. This phrase isn't just a motivational slogan. It's a core philosophy for achieving lasting personal growth. When you commit to change, no matter what, under the no matter what circumstances, you are not leaving room for doubt, hesitation, excuses. You are just making a firm decision that no obstacle, No fear and no setback will stop you from reaching your goal. Think about it. How many times have you set a goal for yourself? Whether it's getting in shape or learning a new skill or advancing in your career, doesn't matter. Only to let that goal slip away when things got tough. Maybe you started out strong, but the moment you hit a roadblock, you found yourself saying, I'll get back to it later. Or maybe this just isn't for me. I am sure many people can relate. And that's where the no matter what mentality comes in. It's about making a decision, a real decision, a firm decision to keep going, even when the going gets tough. It's about pushing through discomfort, fear. It's about pushing through all that uncertainty because you've decided that the result is worth it and you will do it no matter what. I think this mentality is crucial and I want to emphasize it over and over again. It's not about trying. It's about committing fully. When you adopt this mindset, you eliminate the very possibility of failure. Not because things will always go smoothly, but because you've decided that failure simply isn't an option. You'll keep going, adjusting your approach as needed until you achieve what you set out to do. And now I want to talk about resilience and dive deeper into this topic, which is the cornerstone of the no matter what mentality. Resilience is what allows you to bounce back from setbacks, to keep going even when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. Psychologists define resilience as the ability to adapt in the face of adversity. It's not about being unaffected by challenges, but it's rather about being able to recover and keep moving forward, no matter what life throws at you. And here's the thing, resilience isn't something you're born with. It's a skill that can be developed through practice. One of the most famous studies in resilience comes from psychologist Amy Werner, who conducted a 40-year study of children who grew up in challenging, often traumatic environments. And what she found was that about 1/3 of the children, despite all odds, grew up to be successful, well-adjusted adults. And the key difference between those who thrived and those who struggled was resilience. The children who were able to bounce back from adversity had developed a sense of purpose. They have developed strong problem-solving skills and a belief in their own ability to overcome challenges. So you may ask me now, how do you build resilience in your own life? Well, I would suggest that there are several steps that you can take. And first is obviously embrace challenges as opportunities. I always say that. Every setback is an opportunity to grow. We all go through difficulties and we all have these difficulties meet us on our path. When you face a challenge, you need to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Practice gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful tool for resilience because it shifts your focus from what's wrong to what's right. So when you take the time to appreciate what you have, you build a stronger foundation for handling life's challenges. Then cultivate a support system. Resilience isn't about doing it alone. Surround yourself with people who support your growth and encourage you to keep pushing forward. And these could be your friends. It could be your family, your mentors, your coach, anyone who believes in your potential and helps you stay on track. Resilience is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. It's the one thing that allows you to keep going when all others give up. And it's a skill that you can cultivate in your own life. And you can start today. You don't need to wait for anything. Just finish listening to this episode and start. And closely related to resilience is the concept of grit, a term coined by psychologist Angela Duckworth. I have her book somewhere over there. Grit is the combination of passion and perseverance towards long-term goals. Essentially, it's the ability to stay focused and motivated even when progress is slow and even when obstacles seem insurmountable. In her research, Angela Duckworth, she found that grit is one of the most important predictors of success. It's not so much about talent. It's not so much about intelligence, and it's not even about luck. In fact, people who score high on grit tend to outperform their peers, regardless of their IQ or their background or their circumstances. Why? Because grit is about sticking with something over the long term. It is about consistency. It's about keeping going even when it gets difficult. It's about falling down 7 times and getting up 8. It's about pushing through the tough days, all the setbacks, all the negative things, and all the failures, because you are committed to the journey. Not just the destination, but you appreciate that there is a process to it. So here is how you can develop grit in your own life. Just a few advice notes from me. Set long-term goals. Grit is about working towards something that's meaningful to you over a long period of time. It's not about quick wins or instant gratification. It's about staying on the course even when it's hard. So ask yourself, what's the big long-term goal that you're working towards? Why is it important to you? What is going to be the grand payoff? Write it down and keep it in the center of your mind. Now, the second advice is cultivate perseverance, because it is the willingness to keep going, even when progress is slow. It's about showing up every single day, no matter what, again, putting in the work, putting in the effort, and trusting that the result will come. It will come eventually at some point, even if you can't see it right now, just yet. And this is where the no matter what mentality comes in again. When you commit to your goal, you're effectively telling yourself that no obstacle, no failure, no setback will stop you. The third advice is to focus on your progress, not on perfection. One of the biggest killers of grit is the belief that you have to be perfect to succeed. But the truth is that progress matters much, 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 much more than perfection. Every step forward, no matter how small this step may be, brings you closer to your goal. So instead of obsessing over doing things perfectly, focus on making steady progress day after day, step by step, one step at a time. Grit is what separates those who achieve greatness from those who give up when things get tough. It's the ability to keep going no matter how hard the journey gets. And when you combine grit with resilience, you become unstoppable. Now, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about massive action. What does it really mean? Taking massive action is about going all in. It's about moving beyond the "I'll try" mentality and committing fully to the process of change. It's not about taking one or two steps and hoping for the best. It's about consistently taking bold, decisive action, even when it's uncomfortable. And here's the thing, most people never reach their full potential, even if it's there, because they are not willing to take that massive action. They dabble, they try a little of this, a little of that, but they never fully commit. And as a result, they stay stuck in the same place year after year, wondering why nothing ever changes. So if you want to see real lasting change in your life, you have to be willing to take big steps. You have to be willing to push past your comfort zone, to do the things that scare you, and to keep going even when it feels like you are not making progress. One of the biggest obstacles to taking massive action is fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But the truth is that fear is just a signal that you are about to grow. When you feel fear, it means you are stepping outside your comfort zone and into new territory. And that's exactly where you need to be if you want to change. Now, here is some advice on how you take massive action. First, you need to identify the boldest step you can take. What's the one action that if you took it today would have the biggest impact on your life? Maybe it's having that difficult conversation that you've been avoiding. Or maybe it's finally starting that project that you've been dreaming about. Whatever it is, commit to taking that step today. Don't wait until you feel ready, because that day, quite frankly, may never come. Take the boldest step you can think of and watch how your life starts to shift. Secondly, commit to consistency. Massive action isn't just about one big step. It's about taking bold action consistently, day after day, month after month, year after year. It's about showing up, doing the work, and pushing through the discomfort, even when you don't feel like it. When you feel you don't want to go to work, when you feel tired, when you feel drained, when you don't want these difficulties anymore. This is where most people give up. They take one or two big steps, like the massive things, the big things. But when they don't see immediate results and that instant gratification, they just stop. They stop and they talk themselves into the idea that, well, it's just not for them, or it's not possible, or it's too expensive, or this is going to take too much time. Whatever it is, don't let that be you. Commit to showing up every day, no matter what. Thirdly, measure your progress. You need to see the starting point and the point of your destination where you are in between. One of the keys to taking massive action is tracking your progress. When you measure your actions, you create accountability, and you can see how far you've come, how much you've done. And this not only keeps you motivated, but it also helps you course correct when things aren't working. Reflect on what could be the problem. So whatever goal you're working towards, make sure you are tracking your progress along the way. See, massive action is the key to unlocking the full potential. And it's the difference between staying stuck and breaking through to the next level. This is where your glass ceiling ends. And the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. So when you commit to identifying, admitting, and addressing your weaknesses, you don't just become a better version of yourself. You become unshakable, unstoppable. You become stronger than others, smarter than others. You transform the parts of yourself that once held you back into the very strength that propel you forward. You learn that your weaknesses aren't fixed. They are simply areas for growth. They are opportunities. And you realize that the obstacles that you once feared are just opportunities in disguise. And you discover that the power to change your life has been within you all that time, all along. You just didn't see it. When you take massive action, build resilience, and when you adopt the no matter what mentality that we've spoken about in today's episode, you step into a new version of yourself, a version that is confident, a version that is brave, courageous, and unstoppable. And that's what it means to become really strong and truly unshakable. On this note, I would like to take this opportunity and thank you for joining me on this journey today. And now, if you're serious about taking the next step in your transformation, I've got something special for you. I've put together an ebook that is essentially the quintessence of everything there is to know on today's topic. And it's completely free for you to have if you want it. Think of this ebook as a goldmine for those of you who love to dig deeper and get into the real heart of the matter, and obviously who love to read like I do. This ebook contains everything we've talked about today and so much more that I have discovered during my research on this particular subject. It's packed with years of my personal expertise, with insights from hundreds of books written by other reputable authors that I personally read and those that I have seen references to. It's all backed up by scientific research, facts, quotes, and actionable steps that you can apply immediately. See, when I prepare for each episode, I pour everything into these ebooks, making sure that they are as comprehensive and insightful as possible. So you can trust that you are getting the very best knowledge and the very best tools there are. Along with this ebook, I've also created some cheat sheets and additional materials to help you put these ideas into practice in your own life. It's completely free of charge, even though a like and subscribe will still not hurt, definitely. Thank you very much, but it's completely up to you. If you're interested, all you need to do is drop a comment to this video on my YouTube channel saying book, and I'll send you instructions on how to get access to everything. And as always, make sure to check out and join my community on my website at katiekaspari.com for more resources, free downloads, and details on upcoming live events. And yet again, don't forget, every Friday at 12 noon UK time, I'll be hosting a live Q&A where you can ask questions and get first-hand answers from me about anything and everything to do with mindset, success, and happiness. I'd love to see you there and hope you will join. So up until next time, keep pushing, keep growing, and remember, you are one decision away from becoming truly unshakable. And once again, bureaucracy aside, please kindly like and subscribe. This really helps the channel grow and lets me know that you are out there. Thank you very much for joining me today. See you next time. Bye-bye.